You're listening to Graphic Novel Explorers Club podcast, an audiobook club.
Last time on Graphic Novel Explorers Club.
Mama, I spent enough time in Salvation. I gotta find Tulip.
Cassidy, I need my pills and my vodka.
Tulip, it's time to take you to medicine. All right, that was a recap.
A poor recap.
I think that was an excellent recap.
Yours was excellent.
No, everyone was excellent.
No, not as good as Mama.
Mama, I'm coming home.
Mama, I gotta head on down out of Salvation.
So all those years of watching Dukes of Hazzard paid off.
There was no Mama on Dukes of Hazzard.
No,
it was
but
just
you
Uncle
know,
Jesse.
That's true.
Two of the coolest guys ever were both named Uncle Jesse.
Oh yeah,
Uncle Jesse Stenopoulos, or what was his name on
from
Full House?
Full House, yeah.
And then Uncle Jesse Hazzard.
I actually never really got into that show.
What?
Yeah, it wasn't my thing, man.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, I loved everything in the 70s that involved a car when I was a kid. So Dukes of Hazzard, CHP. Or
No,
CHP
I got
chips.
Dukes in the Hazard. I didn't get into Full House.
That's what I thought you meant.
I
yeah.
thought you meant Dukes of Hazzard.
Okay, so I got two different reelies. No to Full House. Yes, the Dukes of Hazzard. I had multiple cars and the action figures, and they would go off ramps. Yeah.
What about the new Full House? Did you get into that?
No.
Oh.
My dad and I were at the Giants game where they were filming the scene where
Yeah, Stephanie was singing.
something. I just remember, we had to all boo her, and then
How am I just finding out about this?
and then I don't know because that show's terrible. And then DJ Tanner, it would do the real kiss cam, and then it would cut to her, and she'd go no, and they told us all yell yes, or kiss her or something like that. And they did it 2 or 3 times, and then on the third or fourth time, they kissed.
So they interrupt the game like it was like...
No, we did it during the 7th inning stretch.
Oh, right on.
So the players are taking a little longer anyway. So.
Right, totally.
I don't know why baseball players need a break. Half the time you're just sitting on your ass.
There goes the sports podcast that we were hoping to start.
Yeah.
Or just standing on,
So what are we covering today?
Today we're covering Preacher Volume 8.
Whoop, whoop. One more to go.
All hell's coming. And that covers issues 51 through 58.
This says 41 through 50 for Saul. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong one. Sorry.
You're an
gonna
idiot.
shut up.
You're being very corrective this morning.
Yes.
No, don't say that.
What do you?
Well, because you wanted to look at it.
It's 51 through 58 plus, once again, a one-shot. This one called Tall in the Saddle, which, unlike some
There's
of the
a
others...
one-shot in this one?
Yeah, at the very end. We
So-
don't even need to cover it, really.
Well,
I read it. I didn't realize it was a one-shot.
yeah, so I felt that it would be better have been placed. It would have been better placed at the beginning, only because it gives a little bit of insight into the relationships between Amy and them. But that is a one shot.
Basically we can just cover it real fast.
Okay.
This is back when Jesse and Tulip first started dating, and they're stealing cars in Arizona.
And apparently they're actually really involved in stealing cars. It's not. I thought they were just jacking a
Boosting
random car in a car,
cars.
but they full on took a trailer full of cars.
Worth $1 million,
Right.
That they were going to get paid.
Amy's
And-
helping them. Tulip's friend.
Yeah, and in the process of stealing these cars, and they're on a flatbed or on a trailer, they the police find them. Sorry, I'm burping a little bit here. And in getting away, the big rig crashes. The guy that they're supposed to sell the cars to is like, okay, so because you owe me for these cars, I'm gonna have you move a bunch of horses that I stole. And Jesse goes, no, I don't do that. I don't mess with horses.
Right.
Which is again another play on the.
Oh, this
Old
is
West.
a total cowboy.
Yeah,
Eventually he gets recruited by a
retired marshal
to get the
or
horses.
Texas Ranger. Sorry.
Because the horses are his daughters.
One of them belongs to his daughter, something like that. And then his daughter's husband, who is dumb as shit according to the Texas Ranger,
Right. Got killed.
was killed by this bad guy that. So
That's not really the big concern. The concern's more the horses. He doesn't even think the daughters cares about the husband.
Well,
being
because
shot.
they're stealing him for slaughter.
Well, they don't know why exactly. And then it turns out that there's this super stereotypical French guy, which I'm
Yeah.
not entirely sure is French by the end. Because when he's begging for his life, I think he says, I'm going to be less French, and I think he might drop his accent.
Oh.
But I'm not, so I don't know if it's an
I just took that as meaning, like, I could be less of who I am.
Right.
Not as an impersonator.
So this caricature basically is the one who's requesting for these horses to be killed and slaughtered.
Young horses. They
Right.
want young horses to be sent to France for
Meat.
for eating. And the Texas Ranger and Jesse and Tulip all get caught. The Texas Ranger
And Amy too, right? I forget.
Amy's boyfriend is the one that ruined the cars.
Yeah.
Well,
it's not even that important. But like he they get caught. They wind up escaping, and in escaping, the Texas Ranger gets shot in the stomach.
Gives
and-
Jesse his badge.
Yeah. and they wind up freeing the horses, and everyone die. All the bad guys die.
Jesse ends up
That's it.
hanging the main French guy.
Yeah.
Killing one of the other bad guys with a horse. And yeah, basically it's a super cowboy episode.
Yeah. And then there's a brief moment where Amy and Jesse
This is where I thought it was important.
like almost kiss, because there's definitely attraction between the two of them, and they both say we can't do this. We both love Tulip too much to make this kind of mistake. And
yeah, and remind me to bring that up again, because I think that's important for later on. That's why I thought it was better better served if this was read first.
I got you.
And
See, sorry, I
Okay.
thought it was actually really well placed because I didn't even get that it was a one shot. I think it was telling the backstory of how Jesse and Tulip kind of
Yeah.
came to be, and
Right.
because, spoiler alert, Amy's kind of featured in this volume more so.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was kind of giving us. So I didn't even get it as a one shot. Like I really, and I thought where it was placed, I actually thought it was placed really well.
Yeah, I agree, because you
I thought it would have given more context to Amy and her relationship
I think too
before.
at this point though, because volume 7, all those books, Tulip and Cassidy weren't featured at all. If I would have started with another flashback, I'd be like, get me,
Right.
what the
Yeah.
hell? Like, yeah. But I see your points.
Right. So yeah, that's right. Just to go back really quick before we dig into the book, this is the penultimate, right? That's the word. Volume before we hit the last volume 9, which they've since been reconfigured, and you can get the books now in 6 volumes. So it was a little confusing for me because I'm reading it in the 6-volume version, so I had to reference exactly what books this covered. But right, so we're in the home stretch now. We're at starting at issue 51. This book's been going on. How many years is that now? It was 4 years, just about, because 12 episodes, 4 years, 48. So just about a little over 4 years now we've been into this episode. So yeah, we spent, like you said, the last volume almost had no Tulip and Cassidy. That's almost 10 months worth of episodes, issues that they didn't cover. Almost a year that they basically didn't even address the main story, which is kind of crazy for a book, but that's how it goes. So anyway, we'll get into it. The book starts off about 6 months in. We cut to Tulip looking like she's basically had an epiphany and is cleaning herself up, saying she's had too much of a shit.
No, I think I took it as she's trying to get another fix.
Oh, I
And
did.
then-
I was with Dennis. I thought she was. I think she finally. Go ahead with. I'm sorry.
Well, I
Yeah,
was
go
gonna
ahead
say, it looked to me like she's rummaging through everything, because this is what she says to Cassidy is she's looking through all of her shit and then doesn't find it and realizes she has a moment of clarity and says, I don't need this shit. And then later, she's like, I'm leaving, and Cassidy goes, oh, okay, let me, just stay here. I'll get cleaned up and we can head out. And she basically is like, no, you fucked up. You didn't get me my stuff. So now I'm clear-minded enough to get out of here.
Well, yeah, I think I felt she was still like hungover and such, but I felt like as if she just said, you know what, this is like maybe looking around initially for stuff, and then just kind of have this clarity where she realizes she just wants out of the situation. And she does say that, because you're too fucked up with me, you didn't get stock up on Valium.
Yeah, I didn't stack up all my stuff.
So I think besides the other drugs, the Valium was kind of keeping her sedated in a sense. So without that particular drug, I mean, the other drugs were getting her high and everything, but without the Valium in particular, she wasn't
suppressed
in this haze.
Also, is it a year now, or is it still 6 months since she last saw him?
I thought it was 6 months.
It's maybe 6 months, but
I don't know, because how long was he in Salvation?
It didn't seem that long.
it was at least 6 months.
Yeah,
there was like
he was there
6
for a
months,
while.
but I think if I'm recalling correctly, volume 7 started out like kind of like 6 months later or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
So I think also too, like with Tulip, she was so deep into depression. I saw this as someone was finally, okay, I've come to terms with what I've lost. Like
Right.
that
She
I've
even
come to
says
terms with
something
it.
like that.
Yeah.
She even says something to the fact of like,
Right. So basically, Cassie tries to stop her. Basically, calls her ungrateful, saying that he's kept her safe from Starr. She pulls a gun on him.
yeah, she's like, bullshit. Starr is not out looking for us because
They care about Jesse.
Yeah, Jesse's dead. He doesn't care about
Yeah.
us. And Jesse's dead.
And then you just want to keep me for your own selfish reasons. Actually shoots him.
With a desert eagle.
Right. Knowing full well it won't kill him, but that it will punch him through, which it does. It punches him through the door. He falls out into the sun and hilariously catches on fire as usual and scurries like a rat under a car. She walks off, pissed off, into their truck, drives off, and I think purposely runs over his toes over just to give another little FU to him. And he's screaming like a banshee, and then she takes off. And eventually,
That's when she says, "I'll always love you."
Right.
But you're gone. So she finally
accepts that Jesse's dead, as far as her character is concerned.
So what I really liked about this scene, and I'm glad it started this way, was in the last volume, in my head, and I think I mentioned this, I was like, Jesse, Tulip needs you. Like,
Yeah.
go get her.
Right.
But I was like, Tulip saved herself.
Yep.
And this was written, 17 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that back then, it really wasn't, girl power really wasn't a thing yet. And the knight in shining, armor.
Well, yeah, that's most stories. The damsel had to be rescued.
Yeah, and I love that and I think, I think everybody's kind of been in this situation, male or female, like where you do kind of, something bad happens and you kind of wallow in it, and then it's up to yourself.
Yeah.
You dig yourself out. And I love that she was able to do that, even like with the pills, with the alcohol, and for whatever reason, she had that moment of clarity. She's like, okay, I can move on now. And I loved it.
No, absolutely. And then we cut to what was confusing to me. We basically get a flashback of her origin story and how she came to be. It wasn't really clear at first.
Yeah. It's a bunch of guys hanging around,
Being bros.
Yeah, saying like,
Jack O'Hare is the dad.
Jake O'Hare.
Yeah, and it's like, his wife's pregnant, expecting a kid. There's like,
No, she's giving birth.
Yeah.
And he's at the bar drinking.
and he's waiting basically to hear that the baby's out, and
It's gonna be a boy.
Oh, of course it's a boy. It's O'Hare's kid, that kind of thing. And one guy pipes up and says, "Well, what if it's a girl?" Which I thought it was kind of it was funny. It was all very machismo kind of stuff. And then he gets a fateful call. It turns out that the wife had died in childbirth, and that he has a baby daughter.
Yeah.
So
And he honors the mom because she always she wanted to pick out for their child a name. She always liked flowers, so that's how she got Tulip O'Hare.
right. And so, initially it's unclear, but it becomes very clear that it's Tulip's backstory, and then it cuts to
And it was nice because, in the hospital, when he holds her for the first time, he says, I guess a girl's not so bad.
Yeah.
right.
Like, yeah.
Considering how macho he is, and I can say as a dad, not that I was expecting all sons and was acting like that, but when you actually are able to hold your kid for the first time, it changes things. Like, I was nervous to become a father at first, and then once you hold that child, it something just changes in your brain where it's like, okay, well, this is what I got to do.
Yeah.
And not just like out of duty, but just like you just fall in love with this creation of yours. So I can see how that can change him, although he's kind of a dick dad. But I mean, not to her, but he's just kind of a super macho. Well, basically it goes through her youth, and he's teaching her. He's basically making her a tomboy, right?
No, see, I didn't take it that way. I think he without realizing it, became a feminist because she wants to play baseball and the team won't allow her because they're all boys. And he's like, bullshit. If my kid if my kid has the ability to play and can play better than anybody on the team, she should be able to play.
Well, I agree with that too. But what I'm saying is that he's basically treating her like the son he didn't get.
Yeah, like she's probably interested in baseball because that's.
No, I just think she is. I think that's how she is. She's just kind of she is a tomboy, but I don't think he made her a tomboy.
But I think he's teaching her what he knows, which is guns, hunting, and baseball.
Like if her mom was there, I have a feeling maybe she was into she'd be into tea parties.
Right.
I don't know. I think
doll.
she just would have gravitated towards that. Like I don't.
That's not the impression I got. And as a woman who was raised with tea parties,
and as a guy who was raised with guns, no,
I was raised with tea parties and nature versus nurture.
But I do agree with you too, though, Johnny. He did become started
for
standing
sure.
up for women where I don't think he would have before.
Yeah.
Well, he's sitting drinking with his buddies, and it's like, I don't understand these coaches. Why are they treating her differently? And Tulip is in between worlds, in the sense that she's growing up in a traditional background where the girls want to do girly things, the boys want to do boy things, and when she has interests in boy things, the girls don't want to be with her because she's too boyish, and the boys don't want to be with her because she's too much of a girl.
Because she's a girl.
Because she's a girl.
Yeah, so that's true. Yeah, she can't make friends.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard.
And then eventually it cuts to when she's, I think, 13, and they're on a hunting trip. Well,
no, wait, hold on. There's
I know what you want to address, right?
The hook?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that confused me. So they go on all sorts of trips, and one of them is they they're fishing for a shark, and you never see anything, right?
You don't see an incident happen.
And then he's reading a story.
Yeah, and he's got his left hand as a hook.
Which I thought was just he's just trying to be the super cool dad. Trying to bring in props or something.
Yeah.
It isn't until 13
but they're not telling but he's not telling a pirate story.
Oh, yeah.
He's telling her a World War II, let's storm the bunker story.
Exactly.
And then I didn't. It's been a while since I've read this, and I didn't see that until they go on their fateful hunting trip, and her dad gets shot in the head while he's taking a shit, and on the hook,
he's toilet paper.
He's got the toilet paper roll. I was like, wait, what? I was like, so I had to flip back, and I'm like, no, he didn't have a hook until after the fishing for sharks. So I was like, so somehow that shark must have bit his hand
right.
off.
Maybe it wasn't totally dead, but it was kind of funny that I had to go back a few times because I was like, did I misread that?
I did that too. I was like, how did this hook?
Because clearly they showed the shark for a reason, but it's like they never said, oh, that shark got me.
Yeah. He doesn't. And it's not like the shark is on. Like if a shark took my hand and I killed that shark, I'd have that shark displayed.
Right.
Probably with my hand in its mouth.
So her dad, as Johnny explained, went to go take a shit, and apparently was doing some rustling, and some hunters mistook that rustling for some kind of creature and basically shot him in the back of the head.
Shot blindly into the bush.
And so he basically keeled forward, pants down, toilet paper.
Mid-dump.
Yeah, that's not the way to go. So anyway, a couple years later, it cuts to a private high school, I think.
Yeah, private school.
Yeah.
I think she's in high school.
She's a ward of the state, which I don't know exactly how that works with a private high school. I don't know.
Her dad must have set something up. Doesn't she talk about her aunt?
Oh, sold money, sold stuff. I don't remember.
Like her aunt has her inheritance or something like that.
But until she turns
and put her in the boarding school so she could spend it.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. So she's there. She's doing well academically, right?
But she's kind of an outsider still.
And then she
and it's an all-girls private school.
Yeah,
right. And then she meets Amy for the first time, who's a
poor little rich girl.
Daughter of a senator. Which no. Yeah, exactly.
Wait, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was jumping ahead in the story.
Go ahead.
Well, okay, but basically, it turns out later that her dad dies. It's not now. At this point in the story, I think he's alive.
Yeah, he probably dies when she's 20.
Right. So he tosses her some money. So she's got
some money,
a lot
of money.
She has a nice a Humvee, a sawed-off shotgun.
Yeah, and her dad died while having a couple crack whores go down. He was going down on one, and one was going down on him.
And he suffocated.
And died.
Right.
Johnny and Dennis, both of their faces are lighting up when they are saying the story about the crack whores. Like,
because it's
like,
hilarious.
that's a great way to
It
go.
is.
I hope that could be me one day.
No. Those are your words, not mine. I would
Exactly.
never ever want to die that way.
Live, maybe, not die.
No, not even live. You're making some horrible life decisions when it results in anybody who is doing anything for money to get crack.
Right. So, and then I think Amy's mom had left him. I didn't quite understand.
It sounded like she left him for another woman.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
I was confused if she was just sleeping around with some of his other friends. Like, the conversation got kind of muddied for me.
So at this point, I saw some parallels between Betty and Veronica.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the rich brunette girl.
Okay, which is Amy.
Yeah, and then Betty, who's kind of tomboyish, like not sexy, not because. So I know we're gonna get to that point, but they're gonna go to a party, and Amy dresses
Tulip
up, like, because Tulip, being a tomboy, she's not like into appearances, but I mean she's a pretty girl naturally. Like, she doesn't wear a lot of makeup.
She doesn't know makeup though.
Yeah, and just the different upbringings, like from the money, not having money, and not an extreme parallel, but I definitely got the Betty and Veronica vibe, and I wonder like if that influenced this at all.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, you definitely. So yeah, they get ready to go to a party. They go to a frat party.
And they're still in high school, so a frat party is like college.
Right.
Yeah.
They end up. Well, I'm not sure.
And it's like a Kennedy, one of the Kennedy kids.
Right. Does Tulip drink at that party? I know Amy does for sure.
So someone offers him the punch, and she sees the Jack Daniels and goes for that, whereas
she takes
Amy
the
goes
bottle.
for the punch, which must have been spiked.
Oh, that's right. And they even said he's like, well, there's an open bottle of Jack Daniels. She's like, this one will do fine. So we know her bottle was never opened yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Smart girl.
And so in the punch bowl, there must have been some sort of roofie or something, because Amy very quickly starts to like not be able to function.
Right.
So Tulip tells her, "Hey, I'm gonna go get our stuff. I'll be right back. Just wait right here."
And when she looks for her, she finds her in a room. Four guys are about to
with
bang her.
one of the guys who was like,
Right.
"Drink out of this."
Right.
Yeah.
She's like has no clothes on. She has her underwear on, but it's like
No, she has clothes.
She has her dress, but they're like pulling her clothes
Yeah.
off.
Yeah, they're in the process of
About to rape her.
so like with the art, like with the art scene, how it's like it got like very dark. The way the light is shining on her. Yeah.
And I will say at this point, we've read enough of Preacher that I thought I'd be desensitized to this kind of stuff. But for the most part, I mean, it sounds terrible, but when it's like some guy getting raped by a goat or whatever happens to him, I don't really, or Starr about to get raped, I don't think this is serious. But this was a very dark moment. I was like,
Yeah, I agree.
This is a very, I felt like before I was like, I was almost like, the tension, and then Tulip like bailed on her in what I thought was bailing on her. So I said, well, she's running off, and then she proceeds to go full Sarah Connor, smash the Jeep through the wall, bust out the shotgun, and start firing in
over their
heads to freak them out. Rescues Amy. Basically intends to kill the lead. Well, I don't think she.
Well, he starts to antagonize her.
Right.
He's like, "You wouldn't have done it anyways," and then
she pulls the trigger and it goes click.
Yeah.
And he pees himself and then collapses to the floor, and they take off. So, Amy's super grateful and amazed. And actually, I thought one of the lines, I think I quoted it here, that I thought was interesting was that Amy said was, "Guys like that, they don't go to jail, Tulip. Their dads can buy judges.
Yeah.
I should know. They do whatever they want, and anyone who stands up to them is a slut or a tease and was probably asking for it. It all gets fixed, and they grow up to be president or something, but you had a gun." So I thought that was interesting. I mean, that was over 17 years ago now, and sadly that could be pulled from today's headlines, honestly. I mean, with the case with Stanford or what have you.
Was that the guy that because he was a straight A student, he got like 6 months probation for rape?
Yeah.
That's, and let's face it too, I mean, they're all white. Well, I
Right.
mean, that's what happens where,
Yeah.
and it is sad, and it's the truth, and I'm kind of glad he acknowledged that, the writer in this book, because
Well, I think and going back to with the one-shot book at the end of the story, I think it bookends to show here's the relationship between Tulip and Amy, and here's the relationship between Jesse and Amy, where they all love and support each other, even though there's an attraction between, the the two friends, their love for each other goes beyond that.
Well, and it's very interesting too, though, because then you throw in Cassidy, and he's the other threesome.
That's
so to
another
speak.
triad, yeah.
Right? And the differences, right? Amy tends to take the back seat to everything. We'll go over.
She doesn't press, even though she loves is physically attracted to and emotionally attracted to Jesse. Her love of Tulip doesn't allow. She will not allow herself to
Cross the line.
Yeah, cross the line and break that friendship. Whereas Cassidy is so selfish.
Right.
Well, I was going to say this though, and I'm not trying to stereotype, but I will. I tend to view female friendships. It's like another relationship. It's almost like a marriage when you're really, really close girlfriend. Because like I know for men, like with my boyfriend and his best friend, they'll spend like 8 hours, and I'm like, oh, what'd you guys talk about? Nothing. Whereas women, like you bear all like your soul to each other, and you, like if you're really, really close, your periods synchronize. And you like feel like this great like this is a true story. Your periods will sync, and then you feel like you've really achieved. Like wow, like we're literally synced now.
For nerds, this would be like unlocking a
achievement
and a platinum achievement
or
on
a co-op platinum achievement together.
On PlayStation Network.
So that's like when Johnny and I played The Division.
Yeah.
And we both completed the mission together, and we both got the little award.
Okay, yeah. So I could see like that. So, but like I will say too, what's there's
And then
a
when I
friend-
asked him if he needed to like reset his gear.
Okay, no, stop. So I'm gonna finish the story. So I have a friend, and her and I were really best friends, and she had this other best friend, and they had a falling out. And her best friend told me, she's like, it was worse than losing a boyfriend. And then me and this friend now, we also had a falling out. Like she has friend issues, but it did like it hurt so hard. It was worse than when I got divorced.
Jeez.
Yeah, because like, and also so going back to this, I think that did highlight like just how close they are, and that there is a love between them. But I think because their friendship is real and it's sincere, that's why Amy never crosses the line. Cassidy's friendship was never sincere.
Yeah.
Like him and Jesse don't have this closeness. They don't have this history
Well,
together.
Jesse thinks they do.
Right, but when you look at the history of Tulip and Amy, then you look at as a comparison. So I don't think it's.
Well, I
think
would
it's part
say,
of that too.
Jesse went into an area to go get Cassidy where he knew he could have died. I mean, I don't think Jesse went through hell to get Cassidy out, and
Right.
Cassidy, tried a couple different times to rescue them, and always messed it up somehow. But so I think they've all comparably both trio of friends have tried and have gone through hell for each other, but Jesse, Tulip, and Amy all respect each other and their friendship and that bond, whereas Cassidy just doesn't give a shit.
Gotcha.
He's so fucking selfish. He doesn't, he knows how much Jesse loves him and trusts him, and he still breaks that.
I have more to say on Amy, but I'll save it for later when we get more of the story in.
Okay, I thought you were going to talk about your guys' medals again. Like, wait, let me finish this. But that is,
Wait a minute. Well, now that Johnny had sold his PS4, I feel betrayed.
Yeah.
I cried.
I'm the Cassidy of this group.
Yeah, he really is.
He is.
He is. I cry. I felt
He wears
like
glasses.
like
His
if-
hair is
yeah,
disheveled.
it was like a
But-
divorce.
but
It was
you're-
like boom.
You're the one who's hungover, and I'm not.
Oh yeah,
so.
yeah.
But I'm functioning, just like Tulip.
Just like
I'm
Cassidy.
embracing the character today.
Right. Wow.
All right.
So anyway, to finish out this part of the comic, it turns out that they take a break for a couple years from school, I think, before they go to college or want to go to college. It turns out Amy was there on the fateful night that, or in town, the same fateful night that Tulip had met Jesse, and he had dumped the girl he was with, etc. She was just somewhere else. And then at that point, she thought, oh, maybe Tulip has actually found the guy, the dream guy for her. And then it cuts to Tulip finally making it her way to Amy, present day New York. It gets a little confusing because there's no like weird bubbles or anything that indicate anything is a flashback or a dream sequence. But yeah, finally, Tulip has made her way to Amy. Starts bawling out about what's been happening, and saying that I finally accepted that Jesse's died. and then Amy says, "Oh, but wait, Jesse called me like a month after around when you did, and everything was bad. And he called me 3 days ago, and he says he's coming.
He's on his way.
And then Tulip's like, "What kind of friend are you? I just told you I got over."
Yeah, like, why are you messing with me?
I know, and then I can only imagine what was going on in her heart.
Are you throwing up?
No. Trying to get Chester.
What was going on in her heart, where it's like, oh, I can finally accept he's dead. Oh boy, he's not dead.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah, Tulip's like, why are you messing with me? She says, I'm not. It's the truth. He's on his way.
And then there's a knock at the door.
Well, and then it cuts to Jesse on his way.
Right. Now the knock on the door, and then now it's Jesse. I don't know exactly the time period, but he's away from Salvation on his road trip.
Yeah.
To I
it
think
must
New
be
York.
within like a week.
Yeah.
Because he's driving from Texas to New York.
Right.
Is he talking to the dog? Like, I'm not going to
No.
stop. Oh, yeah, because it doesn't say in the car something like I don't want to stop because I want to get there quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he ends up picking up a couple on the way. He picks up some hitchhikers.
He picks up a ex-porn star who accidentally killed a bunch of people, and it blacklisted him.
Tom Cruise.
Yeah, and he just talks about the American dream, and
Right.
and then we catch back up with the two sexual detectives.
Right. Well, not just catch up. He drops the Tom Cruise off, and then he ends up picking up the two sexual detectives from San Francisco.
Yeah,
Right.
from Jesse or from Jesus Desaad's house.
Right. The guys who worked for Desaad, the one that was like naked on top of the car, but because of Jesse's Swiss cheese memory, he doesn't really recall where he knows these guys from, and they don't recognize him. He's got a nicer haircut.
Well, and they didn't see him per se. They were just on top of his car.
Oh, right.
And then it turns out that these two are looking for Tom Cruise because he took some money from some gangster that was like back in the porn movies that he was in.
Right. And then just as a side note, Tom Cruise, I think, was headed to Ohio, and when Jesse finally drops him off, I think he kind of directs him towards Boston or Pennsylvania,
like
somewhere away from there. But once again, these two talk about the American dream as well. So how America's the land of opportunities, and et cetera.
And well, they both touch on like it being a land of second chances and third chances, and if you're new to the country, it's a land of opportunity, and you can, no matter how many mistakes you make, there's a chance to start anew, basically.
And then I think to finish out the comic, I think Jesse's listening to talk radio, and
it's the that super right wing guy and the super left wing girl,
right
on the radio.
And then I guess he gets sick of hearing them, so he calls up and uses the word on God on them and asks them what they really want. And it turns out,
tell us what you really want.
Tell us what you really want. And no matter whether you're a feminist or anti-feminist, apparently you just want dick. So that's the summation of that.
So then it closes out with Jesse knocking on the door, and then the next monthly must have started was them having sex, and Amy's down at they're up in Amy's apartment. Yeah, she's almost like the what's that famous painting of like
the dogs playing poker?
No. It's a famous painting looking through the window into a bar.
Oh, the one where you see the
patrons,
diner.
And then they've co-opted it with like James Dean, Marilyn Monroe, and Humphrey Bogart.
Right, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I forget the diner or something like that. And that's what that shot reminds me of, kind of, where it starts off with her in this bar. She's kind of lamenting, or I shouldn't say lamenting, but she's just kind of sad about the fact that she's alone and her friends love each other and they found each other, and she hasn't found that yet.
Right, exactly. And she's kind of, I don't know, hitting it off with the bartender. Not quite.
No, they're like chit-chatting, and he just seems like a very zen Buddhist kind of guy, where he's just like...
He's a good bartender.
Yeah, but he's not like... he's just calm and peacefully talking to her.
But there's a reason for that. We'll find out in a minute.
Philosophizing with her about the situation.
Right, we'll cut to his story real quickly. He basically was accidentally chemically castrated, which I didn't know. Does that make your dick fall off? That's
no.
You can't get an erection.
Yeah, it dissolves.
Okay. You have no sexual desire.
It dissolves your testicles, not the skin, but the testes.
Gotcha.
Your scrotum's still intact, but
so basically he laments about how finding the one and the people who are meant to be together, that kind of thing.
But he almost like casually on a side note goes, "Oh yeah, because I was chemically castrated."
Right.
Yeah. So what happens is like Amy thinks he's hitting on her. And he's like, "Oh no," and then
Right.
he goes into why because
Right.
he was cast. Yeah.
Well, and then she thinks it's because he was a pedophile or something.
No,
like
she
that.
gets a look on her face.
Right.
He's like, "No, it's not because I was a pedophile. It's because I went down to go take care of a ticket, and I accidentally they called out Joe. My name's John Soap, and they called out Joe Soap. So I held my hand, and then they just took me in the back, made me sign a piece of paper because I thought that was to like clear the ticket. And the next thing I knew, I was out of hospital, and everybody was being mean to me." And I didn't understand why, and then they, chemically castrated me.
Right. And then going back to Jesse and Tulip, I was actually a little surprised. So she basically just tells him what's been happening, right?
And blames him, like...
Does she blame him?
Oh, no, she's like, "Where the fuck were you? Why weren't you looking for me? What was going on?"
Right.
And he's like, "I fucked up. I'm really sorry. I just..."
But he almost seems way too calm when she reveals what Cassidy's been up to. Like,
Well, I
he's in
think he
shock,
doesn't
right?
still believe it. Yeah, I think it's like in shock.
I agree. And at this point with Jesse, I feel like he keeps letting Tulip down. Like
Right.
he left her
Yeah.
behind. He left her in France to go on this. And I keep like, but as a woman, this tends to happen where your man lets you down a lot.
I forgot to mention with the chemical castration. So it had turned out Joe Soap was an actual pedophile, not John Soap, the bartender. Joe Soap was a pedophile.
The bartender wanted to take care of
A ticket, and Joe Soap, the other person who was meant to be chemically castrated, was a pedophile who volunteered because he knew he couldn't stop, so he voluntarily signed up to be chemically castrated, and John Soap got it. And then it turned out he got a huge settlement, but because he couldn't sexually satisfy his wife, she wound up leaving him. And then
got the money.
Amy goes, "Let me guess, she got all the money." And he goes, "Yes, she did."
Right.
And he just seems very zen about it.
Yeah, totally.
And I do think this was something in the late 90s because it was on a talk show. But if you agreed to get castrated, you didn't have to be in prison. I think if it was like you were like a repeat
Right.
offender, you had that option. And it was like the only way to like kind of fix yourself. And that way you could be out in the public. Like I think it like shortened your jail time or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
they
no,
can
I
make
do
a deal
remember
with the
that.
police.
Although
Yeah.
I do question, I mean, we don't want to make this castration
Right,
talk,
yeah.
but I do question whether that would actually work only because, as we know, rape isn't necessarily about sexual gratification. It's about power. So if you want to have power over someone just because you remove their ability to have an erection doesn't necessarily mean they can't rape you still. So,
Well, you remove also all their testosterone too.
like that's, I hear what you're saying about the
Yeah.
desire, but I think
Yeah.
for the pedophiles, some of them they were like, it's an urge I can't stop.
Yeah, it's a sexual attraction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I see both points.
right. But regardless,
Yeah.
that isn't the point.
The point is the wife took all the money.
Right. So Jesse just seems kind of resigned, and I mean, he wants to find out what's going on with Cassie, but he's not
Well,
livid angry like I thought he would be.
we should backtrack a little bit here. She finally reveals to him, Tulip reveals to Jesse, he had been hitting on me.
Right, everything.
All this stuff had been going on, and that's when he's like, "Fuck, I did not like." And Tulip kind of forgives him. She's like, "I'm so sorry. Like, I'm angry because you should have known about this, and you're acting way too blasé about it." And but then she kind of forgives him in that I didn't tell you about it, so.
Yeah.
I can't stay angry at you for not
Right.
coming to look for me. And he tells her, like, I thought going back to the previous episode, we had kind of talked about this where his mindset, he reveals to her, I thought you guys thought I was dead and I thought you had moved on with him.
And
Right.
it was so sudden, like he was upset. Like
Yeah.
how like it's not even a month I'm dead. And
Yeah.
you're like what
So I
kind
had
of
to
relationship we
leave. I
have?
had to get away.
But then he also said that, I didn't want to upset you because you thought I was dead, so I didn't even want to disrupt whatever you were having with Cassidy because
Yeah.
you were moving on. It's kind of like what I felt about, what was it, Tom Hanks movie where he's on an island because his FedEx plane crashed.
Oh, Wilson.
Yes.
Castaway.
Castaway. And then he
I
goes...
was going to guess.
Oh yeah, he gets freed.
Well,
I was gonna guess bachelor party.
or Joe versus the volcano.
Joe versus the volcano.
So yeah, so he finally gets off the island. I don't remember
Yeah.
how long. It might have been a year.
Oh, it was
He-
several years.
It was,
They,
yeah, so it was
they
3
declared him
years.
dead.
Yeah, it was 3 years, and
right.
his girlfriend, come to find out, got married.
What, was it girlfriend or wife remarried?
No, they were
Your boyfriend, girlfriend.
And
Yeah, they weren't.
She married his best friend, and so
That was his best friend. And
yeah. I
what?
think- yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
And she did
and
say,
had a baby.
yeah, but she did say, she was like, she showed him the maps. She's like, she tried to find where he was, and she's like, nobody would listen to me, and she's like, everyone was telling me you were dead, and
Right.
and she like had all this stuff, like you could see she really did try to find him, and they couldn't, so she moved on, and it's sad, but
Well, and then it's a controversial topic right now, but I know how long you wait to start a new relationship.
because the comedian,
Right.
Yeah.
Patton
What?
Oswalt.
so go ahead, tell the
Well,
story.
no, you go ahead.
So what's his name again? I'm so sorry. I know it's
Patton
Oswalt.
Oswalt.
Yeah, so Patton Oswalt, poor guy, he's
Yeah, his wife passed away a couple years ago.
no, she died 15 months ago.
Ooh, you got to correct him.
Oh,
Yeah, it was, and I'm going to tell you why this is important. The 15
Right.
months, and I believe she died in her sleep. Like
Right.
he was grief stricken. Well, now he announced on Twitter, I think a week or two ago, he's super, super happy because he's found love and he got engaged. And I believe it's a family friend, or these two are friends for like a long time.
Right.
People were furious. They told him, "How dare you? You never loved your wife."
Right.
Yeah, it became
Because it's too soon.
yeah,
So
that became the issue. Like, how long is someone supposed to grieve before they can move on? And people thought he was very disrespectful. Where other people came to his defense, like, he was a great husband, and he's finally happy again, right? Because
Yeah.
he grieved, but people are like, they just said like, for 50, because okay, and I get it, like you'd have to date before you get engaged. So when did he start dating? But it's really nobody's business. But
Yeah.
it's a big debate right now. It's like how long.
that's some fucked up shit.
well, and then truth be told, when you get to a certain age, which he's around our age, Johnny, maybe a little older, you don't have time to mess around,
Right,
You,
yeah.
In terms of dating for a long time, especially if you know the person's the one.
yeah, I mean, if he's known her or him, I don't know who it is, but for several years now. Yeah, I mean,
And the gossipy types would go, well, maybe he's always wanted to marry her, but
come on.
the relationships and such are complicated things, and so it was never part of his intention to marry her from the get-go
Yeah.
while with his wife.
Right.
It just happens to be this is the situation, and she was there for him, and they found love.
how
so,
do you even stay in the public limelight after that? Like, I would just be like, no, I'm done. I don't need to deal with this bullshit anymore.
That's the problem with the public, man.
Yeah, I would just be like, I'm done. Nope. I'm retired.
With that regard, maybe Jesse was thinking, well, she thought I was dead.
Yeah, he's
He
probably
could-
mad at her, like slut.
Yeah,
And he did
yeah.
in his flashback. He did view her as a slut.
Right,
He
exactly.
Had to reconcile
From
that.
the previous volume, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, anyway, I think
And they just keep right now. They're just naked. This whole thing, they're naked.
Right. Oh,
they're
yeah.
just doing
Fucking like
it.
rabbits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, once they start like confessing everything, they start getting dressed a little bit. But yeah, they were been banging for several days.
And I think at this point in the comic, that's where in the volume I had, this is where they inserted the one shot. So they did this.
really?
Okay,
So
it's
you
different.
have Amy, talking about how she's alone. She doesn't have a guy like Jesse, etc. Then you have this flashback
To the fuck up who wrecked the car.
who wrecked the car, and how her and Jesse had the exchange, which makes an interesting juxtaposition with now he's going to have to confront Cassidy. So whereas he and Amy had this almost kiss, and they were like, no, we both love Tulip too much.
Yeah.
And at the end of the one shot, if you remember, he's riding the horse and he's talking to the horse and says, what would you do if you had this really cute girl
Who's
and
perfect.
yeah,
And her best friend is also perfect.
And, what if you brought up the idea of,
Getting them both in the bed
yeah,
together.
you think that would mess things up? And then
And
that
the
kind
horse
of thing.
neighs, and he's like, "Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
It's dumb to
exactly.
even bring it up."
Exactly.
Once
so
again, Dennis's face is lighting up.
I'm just, it's just like, God, it's like writing my life. Writing my life.
It's like someone split my chest open, put a tap in my heart, and revealed all of my secret desires.
It's like Garth Ennis was in my room and was interviewing me, and so these are great ideas, and he stole Everything was in my personal
These
diary.
are great ideas. You know what, kid? You got some great ideas.
What was that about the meat packing place? Yeah. Oh yeah, perfect. I'm gonna use this.
Oh man.
But so anyway, it cuts to now. I believe we cut to a gentleman on the beach.
Wait, did
Right?
Jesse?
Wait, no.
Yeah,
So-
you're missing an important part.
Oh, okay.
So
When
they
Jesse and Cassidy leave.
so they go outside. It's snowing, and I
Right.
thought this was
No, this is good.
important thing.
Yeah.
Jesse's standing there just like staring 1,000-yard stare, and gets hit in the face with a snowball, and Tulip's like starts to laugh. He's like, "What the hell?" Basically, and she goes, "You're always so serious about everything." She's like, "Let's lighten up. We found each other. Like, let's enjoy this." That's
Wait.
it.
Is that the part though yet, where she says like, did they leave Amy yet at this point?
No.
Okay,
That's
then
near
I'll
the
save
end.
it. Okay,
Right.
thanks.
But yeah, you're right. That is an important part because basically, Tulip just wants to put it behind her. You know, through all the trouble
Well, she's saying
had.
too. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
She's saying find joy in the moment. Like,
Right.
yes, she's like she says like we're gonna have to work through a lot of stuff. It's gonna be hard. She's like, but right now, we survived this. I want to have fun. I'm gonna play in the snow.
Yeah, really, she comes across as the stronger one. Jesse really comes across as weak. He's stunned. His friend has betrayed him in the back.
Yeah.
But she's managed. I mean, she's the one who had to live through it.
Yeah.
And she's wanting to basically persevere while he's wanting to wallow and brood
Yeah.
and such.
Yeah.
So I'm going to group things a little differently, Johnny, just so we can compress the
Go for it.
the stuff. So basically, the next part of the volume, we catch up with Hoover, who still finally finishes counting sand, which I think is impossible. I don't think you would actually be able to do that.
Well, it's funny because he's so thin now.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
he's like. It took me a second to realize.
Well, I forgot
wow.
about his character.
Yeah.
He's missing teeth.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a huge beard. His hair is like completely like
It's all froed out. Yeah.
and big
Right.
and huge.
And it turns out, you find out later that he had a system on how to actually count the sand. He created like a barrier.
Yeah, with rocks, and he would use it to catch fish, and
Right,
eat raw
exactly.
fish.
But I still don't think you can count all the sands on the beach.
I loved it. I thought it was hilarious.
But then it cuts to Featherstone and Air Starr. They're at the airport to meet the guy we met in the one shot, Einstein.
Who recruited?
Yeah, he was the
Eisenstein.
Eisenstein, thank you, Eisenstein. And I was a little confused because regarding the Grail structure, I had forgotten about it mostly. But Air Star's Allfather, but apparently there's like
A board.
a board
Yeah.
that's still questioning, well, what happened to the old Allfather and everything else? And it's like, he's the Allfather. No one should question him, but they are. And this, what's his name again?
Eisenstein.
Eisenstein is here to basically investigate what's going on.
With the Spetsnaz bodyguard and a giant Doberman Pinscher or a Rottweiler or something like that.
Exactly. And I like the whole. I used to complain. I will segue a little bit. I used to complain about the humor level in Preacher, and I briefly looked over some of the previous books, and as I was reading this one, and I realized I do appreciate the balance in humor, because like the scene where Air Starr is like pissed off that the old lady's going so slow on the escalator and everything. I find it's a good balance between that and the super seriousness.
Yeah.
And so seeing Air Starr and his interactions usually are pretty hilarious.
Well, he and to kind of close this up real fast, Air Star's losing it. He's
Right.
shooting at stuff in the airport. He's shooting computers. He's
Right.
shooting papers because the punctuation isn't correct.
Right.
Isn't correct. And this Eisenstein is coming in to question him. Air Star's like, he's got nothing on us, right? And Featherstone reveals that one of the guys that when they tried to take Jesse at Jesus Desaad's house was
Injured.
paralyzed.
Right.
And so she's kept him on life support and has been taking care of him. So his Air Star's computer gets hacked. Eisenstein goes there and starts to question this guy about like, hey, what's going on? And the guy's like, what's wrong with me? Something's wrong with me. I can't feel my body.
Right.
And during this whole time, Eisenstein is questioning him. He keeps telling him, don't look to your left. Don't
Right.
look around. Don't look around. When Eisenstein finally says, now look to your left, the Spetsnaz enforcer is eating his hand.
Right, because he was one of like 4 who survived some cabin for 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
he basically is a cannibal.
Yeah, and that was really fucking gross to me.
Yeah,
Like, I
that
don't
was.
know why that grossed me out so bad. Because you could see the tendons in his
Right.
hand, and it was just nasty.
I agree. It was more shocking than some of the other moments that we had experienced with similar scenes.
So then Eisenstein confronts Herr Starr. And
Well, before that, just before, Herr Starr really is trying to kill Eisenstein.
Yeah.
Like numerous times through numerous means, and hilariously, each time the commando or some
happenstance.
some happenstance, the assassins are all unsuccessful, and
die.
And Eisenstein knows that Herr Starr is trying to kill him. So yeah,
So they finally confront each other at the top of the hotel. I love this. Herr Starr knows he's screwed. He just says,
Right.
"Fuck it," and kicks Eisenstein over the edge.
I didn't understand that at first. I had to look because like, what happened? Because he
Yeah.
had fucking, and then you see the cane.
Well, at first I thought Eisenstein was jumping. Or,
Right.
or I'm sorry, I thought Herr Starr was gonna. I thought he was saying "fuck it" and was leaping to his death.
right.
Because when he does that, he says "fuck it."
And then you see his leg in the air with no one else.
Yeah, and then the Spetsnaz guys catches his fake leg, and I thought, oh, he prevented him from jumping, and
Right.
then Herr Starr kills the guy because he falls backwards because he's caught his fake leg, and Herr Starr shoots him and kills him, and I thought, oh well, where's Eisenstein? Why didn't
Right.
you shoot him too? And I realized, oh, he kicked him over the.
After all that elaborate, like trying to do these elaborate assassinations, it just basically kicked him over the
Yeah.
edge, killed his commando. He's jubilant, celebrating, and then all of a sudden that dog comes out and gnaws at his balls.
Chooses his crotch off.
Right,
and,
exactly.
Herr Starr shoots the dog and kills him.
Right.
So then at the same time, Jesse is kind of doing some recon and trying to figure out who the fuck is Cassidy. He runs into an old homeless woman.
Well, I thought it was a dude at first.
Oh, really?
Well, no, let's back up. He goes to the bar that Cassidy used to always go to, and
Right.
nobody there can help him. When he leaves the bar, that's when he runs into the homeless person.
Yeah.
And then she keeps saying, like, give me $5, meet here tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
So she starts to reveal that there was.
They knew each other like World War II, right?
Yeah.
I think.
She knew the guy who Cassidy catches up with in the 70s, where he says, I knew there was something about you.
Right.
So it's 3 women, that guy, and Cassidy, and one by one, just Cassidy works his way through the women, getting them addicted to heroin.
Well, the first woman, like, he takes all of her money.
Yeah.
And she's like, I have to pay rent. He's like, give me my fix.
Right.
And, like...
Well, he uses all the language he used with Tulip, right? Darling, sweetie. Really kind of schmoozing.
So that woman eventually leaves for Ohio or back in the Midwest. The next woman...
Not before he smacked her mouth.
Yeah, so hard that, like...
Her teeth came out.
Yeah. And then the other 2... He starts doing heroin with, gets her addicted. So, and I'm not sure if that's Sally.
It isn't.
Okay.
Because I was really confused. That point really confused me. But it turns out right before the final conversation with Jesse, you find out who she is. Because he says, who's this woman?
Oh, so she was the blonde.
Yes.
Oh, establishing your theory,
Yeah.
Francis, about how he likes blondes. Cassidy
Right.
likes blondes.
Yeah, he has a thing,
Right.
right? Yeah. Yeah. And... Oh, there's a scene. I think it's funny.
Go for it.
Well, so Cassidy is like so strung out, and I don't remember which woman it was with, but
Was it with the mice? Or...
no. So
Okay.
sorry, but anyway, so he's trying to get a fix, and he goes to this guy, and the guy's like, "No," he's like, "But your woman can blow me,
Right.
And I'll let and then later on with this other woman,
Well, and he also says, or you can, I don't give a shit.
yeah,
Right.
and he's like all appalled. Well, later on with another woman. She can't find Cassidy at all, and she needs a fix. Like he said he was going to go get at something, and he never comes back. So she goes to find that man back in the alley, so she can get her fix. And you see Cassidy is blowing him, like
Right,
he's
like just finished up.
Right.
yeah. And Cassidy sees that she's witnessed it, and he goes like ballistic.
Yeah.
And then the guy also says, "Sorry, I'm all out of drugs
Yeah.
too, by the way."
Yeah. But you can see now, like, I didn't realize until this point how deep of an addict he was. Because I mean, that's desperate.
Well, and he had broken up that friendship too through
Right.
sleeping with everyone.
And so Sally had been the one who had helped. I think it was Hillary or Dillery.
She's not her memory's so shot.
Right. And then helped her escape town. I think she helped Joanne. I think was the name of the girl, something with a J, Joni maybe. And then, but she still went to check up on Cassidy later, and he looked like that witch from the river. He lost all his hair. He was gnawing on rats.
And then another point, I think this was to Sally when they were strung out and withdrawing.
That was Joni. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he's like, hey, let me get a little taste, and I'll be able
to
the
blood.
But she didn't realize that at first.
Right.
And she's like, no, we're out. Like, we're out. And he's like, no, I just need a little taste, and I'll be able to have the strength to go down there and get what we need. And she realizes he's going to bite her neck, and that's when she like throws open the windows and runs away.
It is
so that the sunlight hits him.
Exactly. It is interesting to think about, and we've talked about it a little bit before, but what if you had someone who was a really bad drug addict but couldn't die? So basically, he continues on his path of destruction endlessly, and a little bit of blood would continue to keep him alive. And so how deep can you go? Most people hit rock bottom or die. Well, if the or die part never becomes a factor, and what's rock bottom?
Yeah. Well, and that's what Sally kind of calls Cassidy on, is like, this dumb shit. If he just just ate a bunch of blood or drank a bunch of blood, he would have just washed it out of his system. Mm-hmm. And that's how fucking stupid Cassidy is that she says that about him. While they're talking on a park bench about this after the third time meeting, she winds up dying very very like with no dignity. Yeah, just like all of her blood and piss comes out of her while she's sitting on the bench. And
that's when she hands him the photo, and it's you see the two women you've seen before, and a third woman you've never seen, a beautiful blonde, and it's implied that that's basically her.
Yeah, and somehow she fell under his trap.
Right. It's never clear what happened to her. She's talked about all the other women.
Well, she did say like she went to go check on him, like you were saying. That's when she finds him eating the rats, and I think maybe she helped him, and then he preyed on her, and turned her into an addict.
Yeah.
And she did confront him. I think later in the 60s or 70s, there's another point where you only see first person, and she's yelling at him.
Well, he shows back up out of the blue after years of after you see him like as the
emaciated
bog monster,
right?
And like, hey guys, I'm here to party, and she's like, no, I know you're fucking game. You're a piece of shit. Get the fuck out of here.
But who knows what kind of abuse he put her through?
Yeah.
So to close this episode out, there's Jesse and Amy and Tulip. Amy and Tulip are out going. They go out somewhere. Jesse's at the house. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Tulip and Jesse are at the house, at Amy's house. There's a knock on the door, and they're like, oh, Amy must have forgotten her keys. Mm-hmm. Open the door, and there's Cassidy. And this is after you see the backstory of what a piece of shit he is.
Right, so Jesse fully knows now.
Yeah. Tulip has now told him, and then someone from his past has told him everything that he's done. And he tries to pretend like, oh, I was just checking up on Tulip to see
I was worried about her. Right?
Yeah, and Jesse's not saying anything. He's just staring at him, and it's
not even angry. Just kind of.
He's just unnerving stare at Cassidy, and Cassidy finally asks him to stop, and then he won't, and he just turns.
Well, Cassidy throws a punch at him.
Well, that's when he starts getting angry. I could fucking kill you if I want, and Amy shows up and pulls her gun, and Tulip's got her gun out, and they're
telling him to get lost.
Yeah. And so then Cassidy goes to punch Jesse, and he catches his hand, catches the fist, and tells him, like, hey, if you really want to do it this way, meet me in 2 months at the Alamo. And on this night in 2 months, and we'll settle it there. And then
really calmly.
Yeah.
Not even word of God stuff or anything.
Cassidy leaves, and they're like, are you okay? Like, and Jesse goes, no, I'm not. Like, I need to go to the hospital. I think every single bone in my hand is broken.
See, and I was confused about that because when I first was introduced to Cassidy, I thought, well, maybe he has like that vampire super strength. But then it didn't seem like it because it never really came into play a lot. I mean, he punched people, but it hasn't come into play like, wow, this guy's like super strong. And so I wasn't sure if.
No, I think he's super strong. I just think Jesse made a point of catching his hand.
Right. Well, it's just because one of the times that he actually was able to punch a guy one of the bad guys was the saint of all killers, and he didn't affect him, but because it's a saint of all
Well,
killers.
when he punched the one of the sexual detectives in the mouth, his
Right.
whole fist went in his.
That's true. That's true.
His face, but
So then it cuts to Jesse with a bandaged arm and hand, and they're packing up, ready to go. And
then we get some closure on two other characters, Billy Wombat.
Well, wait, let him finish this part. 'Cause this is
I'm
important.
sorry.
yeah. So go ahead.
So they're packing up and they're getting ready to leave, and they're leaving Amy's place, and they're gonna go on to finish the mission.
Yeah,
Right.
to
To find God. And Amy says, "Oh, I wish I was one of them," like implying like she
either one.
Yeah, she just really wants to be in a relationship, and it's really unclear why she's single.
That's the thing that bothered me the most was that I don't know.
Like she's pretty, she's smart, she has money. I don't know why she's a recluse.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. I don't know if she's kind of pining for Jesse.
I don't think it's that. I think she has seen what like a real true love is between two people, and it won't settle for anything less than that. Like, and it just doesn't.
I feel like all your views are so off today, Johnny. I don't know how.
But that doesn't mean true love won't find her.
I know.
There's someone would have found her by now.
But I don't think she has found someone that fits what she's looking for.
Well, no, that's just. I don't think she's looking.
Yeah, I think she's a recluse. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and like she even said, like, well, the only guy that I kind of have a kinship with right now has no dick.
Right.
And it's like, you just struck up a conversation with a guy. You could do that with other men. I mean, back then there was no Tinder. There was no Plenty of Fish. But yeah, it's unclear.
Oh. And there's one other thing. When they're packing up their truck to leave, there's a little thing that says, "Help me."
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck is that? And he never went to go look.
Right. I first I thought it was Amy, but it couldn't have been. Because he says goodbye. He says goodbye to Amy at that point, and they have a nice little conversation.
Right.
But you're right.
Something says, "Help me," very teeny tiny.
Right.
And Jesse looks, and then he never goes to. I was like, "What the hell was that?"
Right.
What was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle? They were at their height back then.
Was Arseface in this one?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
I'll go over the Arseface arc in a second.
So Billy Wombat is the guy who wrote "Giant Fuck You" out in the desert, and he's getting closer and closer. Mm-hmm. Like the astronauts are,
doing their shuttle.
Hey, Houston, we're shut down for tonight. Tomorrow we'll pick back up with our whatever they're doing up there, and he's listening in and laughing and giggling like
right.
And then they finally see it, and it just completely like, who would do that? Why would anybody do that? And he's just laughing his ass off. So Billy gets his revenge.
Right. So as the basically the story, the comic entirely is wrapping up soon. So we're on,
we're getting closure on like tertiary characters.
Exactly. So, but I hopefully they do something better for Amy, because I really want more for her.
Yeah.
Because I feel like she gets, honestly, as their friend, I would think that Jesse and Tulip would help her more. Sometimes I feel like they're kind of inconsiderate in their own shell.
Mm-hmm.
And
they don't live near her.
But even when they're with her, I don't know. I feel like they...
Like, she even had to leave her own house.
Yeah.
For a really long time, so they could just go out at like rabbits. Like, that's her house. You two go and get a hotel.
Right.
Like, or just be like a little bit respectful. Don't be going at it for so long. Like,
right.
Go...
Or
I mean...
Or
like
want to hang out with her or something. I don't know. I feel like...
It'd be really weird right now, Johnny. No offense. If Sasha came home and you guys went into your bedroom right now and Dennis are just here and you guys just start going at it and we're like, well,
it'd be a lot different though if I thought Sasha was dead for the past 6 months and she just showed up and I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? I thought you were dead. There'd be a different scenario. But yeah, if she just came home, I agree. I'd be in your guys' camp.
I don't know. I just feel like Amy, I really feel for Amy. I feel like she's a recluse, but I feel like they're not being good friends with, like, why don't you come on us on this road trip or something?
I agree with that. I actually agree with you, Dennis.
I disagree.
Apparently this episode is Francis and I on one side
I know.
and Johnny on the other.
I really am the Cassidy of this
So
trio.
this is, okay, so like, but let's think about this. We could be the Amy, because you had this idea for this podcast.
Right.
And you could have been like, no, I'm gonna do this podcast. Bye, guys. And you've been all by yourself sitting here talking about the book, and you just like left your friends high and
would
dry.
have been a much better show.
Anyway, I hope the best for Amy. I hope we see her again, and I hope she gets a good conclusion.
And then we see
Arseface.
Oh, I'm so sad.
Yeah, he the colonel, or I'm sorry,
Sergeant,
Mr. Sergeant has continuously used Arseface's status to like piss off the Pope, other people, to keep getting the song, whatever song it is, bumped up to number 1 again. And he's been stealing all of Arseface's money, and then he finally just cuts out, leaves a letter saying basically like, hey, you knew the end was coming, so I took all your money. Tough.
And then he's hated now because basically the sergeant had called the Pope on quote unquote on behalf of Arseface, I think, and said fuck you.
Well, and also would call media outlets and say, I'm speaking for Arseface,
right?
And Arseface,
which did help the song go up to number 1, but now the media's banning him. Parent groups are banning him.
And Arseface goes to him before he leaves him high and dry. It's like, what are all these bills? Like, what is this? And he's like, oh, don't worry about it.
I'm taking care of it.
Yeah.
And then throws him in the garbage.
True sergeant or colonel style.
Yeah.
So it looks like basically Arseface has achieved a lot of success and has plummeted now to nothing.
Well, Sergeant took all of his money, put it in an account in the Cayman Islands under his record label, and is fled the country basically, and has left Arseface to deal with the fallout from all of this,
which really sucks.
I know. I feel so bad for the guy.
This reminded me of Toni Braxton a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Because around this time, or right before this time, she filed bankruptcy, and people was like, "Oh, because you're wearing all these Gucci gowns," and she's like, "No." She's like, "My managers, they were writing checks I had no idea about."
Oh,
and she was on Oprah. So okay, this is how big this got, and that's why I remember this. But Oprah was like, she's like, "You always pay attention to your money." She's like, "I hired people to do it. I had no," and they didn't monitor it. And you see that happening quite a bit actually with celebrities. It's unfortunate, but I did think, I was like, I wonder if Tony, if that kind of
right
played into
for sure
this at all.
And then you're right. Like Nicolas Cage, I think that happened too.
Yeah, that's what he's claiming. But his managers and
not his
they
poor
mishandled the
acting
money.
ability.
Even Johnny Depp, he's saying like, my financial handlers, and they're like, no, you spent $2 million on wine. We can't help you. Yeah,
and gold teeth.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a bummer because we've been cheering on Arseface up to this point, and his
well,
rise
you
to
knew
fame.
this was going to happen
with the sergeant guy,
knowing the colonel and
and
Elvis Presley. You knew what was coming. That's what makes it even worse because Arseface doesn't know it's coming.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what would you guys think of this episode? This issue, I should say.
This episode with you is terrible, but this volume. So I did like this. What I'm finding now with these volumes, I'm able to finish it the same day I start. Before, it would take me 2 or 3 days but I'm so into the story now. My only concern is I'm like, how are they going to wrap this all up?
Yeah.
And also, now I'm getting a little bit miffed because I got super excited about this series because it's all about the quest to find God, and God's going to have to answer to somebody. And we don't really hear anything about Genesis anymore. Like, is Genesis always going to reside within the preacher? But I'm really curious to see how they wrap it up. And I'm kind of like, this isn't the story I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. Like, this is not.
It's almost like Inglourious Bastards, where you think it's going to be this suicide mission movie, and it's really about this woman trying to get revenge, because the Nazis killed all of her family because they were Jewish.
Right.
It's more her story than the actual bastards.
So, we only have issues 59 through 66. So that's 7 issues left to cover.
How do you guys think it's going to wrap up? I know how it wraps up, because I've read this before.
Well, you mentioned this in the first episode, first volume, is that we find out what's wrong with Cassidy's eye.
Yep.
I don't know what that is yet. So it's also weird that he's like, Cassidy, meet me in 2 months. We'll settle. Like, no, settle it now, you dummy. But so there's obviously going to be a showdown at the Alamo again. There's going to be this
good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, and. It's gonna have a happy ending, I'm sure, but I don't know.
I don't know.
I know. I don't know what's gonna happen with God. Like that's my biggest thing is like, okay, like I hope they don't reduce God to like 1 or 2 panels. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, first, I like the volume a lot. I thought it was really good. I like the backstory on learning more about Amy, which is why I'm so empathetic towards her. In terms of what I think is going to happen, God, I don't know. It's hard to say. I feel like I'm going to be disappointed only because there's only 7 issues left, and I'm really worried that it's not going to wrap up nicely. But who knows? So yeah. How about you, Johnny? If you were to pretend that you didn't know anything.
Oh, I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't even know how they're going to close this.
Were you surprised when you first read it? Were you surprised by the ending?
Yeah.
Were you satisfied?
Yes, especially with one of the characters. I was like, oh, okay. That kind of makes sense. I will say this. There's a lot of plot twists coming. And I'm really satisfied with this book, this whole series, of how it plays out. It just is, especially from War in the Sun to the end. Like those 3 books, is that 3? 3. They did it's such a great job of just like ramping the tension up. Then you get this like side story thing, and then it gets into the serious thing.
I will say this for the listeners, as I have mentioned previously, the first 2 volumes were really hard for me to read because they were so disturbing. It's not my genre. So if you kind of are interested in reading this series or you're reading along, I'm just going to say it's worth it. Like, keep reading. It does lessen up some of its different intensities, but it does become more comedic. You start to see some of the characters, but I am really glad that I've read it this far, and I'm excited. I can't wait to get to the end.
Garth Ennis started a lot of the stories and introductions to the characters are so over the top, and they're just like they just start. It's like falling off the face of a cliff until like bam, now you're in the story. And you're like, who the fuck are these people? What's going on? Right. And then he waits a little bit to then, halfway into the series before he starts to like really tie characters together and figure out their motivations.
Or those one-shots where you don't find out everything about, like you said, Starr. You don't know his motivations. You just assume he's like super commando.
The 1 star, or if you hadn't had some of these one-offs, you wouldn't know like Cassidy's background or Starr's, why he went against the Grail and is so hell-bent on getting Jesse. Well, now it's just because he's pissed.
But yeah, I definitely... there was a point where I was like, God, there's just too much violence and too much weirdness for me. And like I said, I didn't like the comedy. I wanted more Walking Dead in the sense that it's all serious. But then I realized when I was flipping through, I didn't want all Walking Dead because that's what turned me off to The Walking Dead eventually. That it was just nothing but sadness and very little happiness and just more darkness. And this has a little balance of levity, over the top levity, not just levity, but over the top levity, and a good compelling story. I am very curious now to see the TV series because I assume they change the tone.
Well, the TV series, the first season, no, they kept a lot of the tone the same, but the first season is like a prequel to, and they changed.
Well, like you said, they reveal Cassidy's eyes already.
Yeah, he never wears glasses. Yeah. You're at this point, you've read 6 or 7 years of stories before you realize, like, before Cassidy's thing is revealed, and they don't give that tension, right? And then they also, Cassidy and Tulip, spoiler alert, have already slept with each other in the first season, and. It's, I don't know. It's just, and it's not. I don't think the prequel, this prequel season that they did wasn't really. I don't feel like necessary. It was almost done, and they introduced Quincannon. And the town folks. Sheriff Root is in it, but he's not as gnarly as of a character. Right. I'm hoping this season 2, which I haven't watched yet, is a lot better.
I think they introduced Starr in it.
In season 2? Yeah. That's totally fine. I mean, but the first season of it was just not... I was like, this is unnecessary. Gotcha. They could have just got into it the way they did the comic book in it. I almost felt like season 1 was done because they didn't have faith in the viewing public to understand what the craziness of it.
I definitely enjoy it more, and I would have been aggravated had I had to read this as a monthly, because I think about that last volume where that was 10 issues. That's a year without Tulip and Cassidy. I would have been furious that they didn't address that at all, except for a flashback. But yeah, great stuff so far. Looking forward to the final lap.
To the end, yeah. Well, thank you for listening, everyone. Really appreciate it. Dennis, where can people follow us?
On Twitter, you can follow us at GN Explorers Club. We have a Instagram at GN Explorers Club, and our email is gnexplorersclub@gmail.com.
And that noise is the goddamn cat rubbing his head on our recording table. Piece of shit.
I happen to like Chester.
Me
No,
too.
he's a good cat, but he's an asshole like all cats.
He's not an asshole. He's
He
actually
is
the
an
most
asshole.
he's the most friendly cat I've ever
He's
met.
a straight up
cats.
jerk.
I hate cats.
He
and
pulled
I like that.
$20 out of my banking account.
Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, and he
Please-
gave me the 20. So
No,
yeah,
now I know why you like it.
Please rate us and like us on iTunes
and Stitcher.
and
Yeah,
Stitcher.
and the old Stitcher app. Yeah, thank you for listening. We'll be closing out our summer special next week. And then we'll be back probably sometime, I would say, early winter.
Right. So we are soliciting for any books you guys think are good to read. So please feel free to contact us on any of our social media accounts.
All right. Yep. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks. Mama, I love you, but I gotta go find Tulip.
No, do Mama.
yeah.
I'll spend enough time
That's right.
salvation. It's a good time to go find Tulip.
Elvis-y.
I don't know why Mama.
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 He did it so good. Like I could see, like that's what Jesse would say.
Yeah, very Elvis. Mama.
Oh,
Oh, it's time to TCB.
Okay, sweetie.
Take care of some business.
I'm gonna take Skeeter. We're gonna go find.
Me and Scooters is gonna head on down the road out of salvation, and I gotta find Tulip.
Get fucking Cassidy.
Okay. No.